Welcome to the A.D.H.Deep-Dive, the show that's not about ADHD but is filled with proof it exists. My name is David J. Mund. I'm an actor, director, cinematographer, and chronic distracted guy. And on today's episode, I talked to my old friend John Kelley. John is a friend from right outside my hometown and is now a lab and field lead for an IT company in West Michigan. We reminisce about our hometown's strange obsession with the band Kiss, but we also ran it in with a heartfelt discussion about the enormous mental and financial stress that the college experience can bring to someone who isn't quite sure what they want for their future. So thank you for joining this episode of the A.D.H. Deep Dive. Let's dive in, shall we? I knew she just got back from Chicago. I want to go to Chicago so bad. Have you ever been?
A handful of times.
There's like there's a metro living lifestyle that I want to pursue that I like in Grand Rapids towards downtown. New York City was obviously too big, but I would assume that the next step up for me is probably Chicago. There's just so much shit happening. Chicago or Atlanta, they're just growing metropolitan areas.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so yeah, whenever we go to Chicago, we've gone a handful of times, whether it be for anniversaries or whatnot. And we always just stay like kind of in downtown.
Yeah.
Well, kind of on Miracle Mile. I almost said Medical Mile, but that's a Grand Rapids thing. Miracle Mile. And then we went to a concert up in like the Lincoln Park-ish area.
Not to see Lincoln Park?
Not to see Lincoln Park, man.
Oh, shame.
I tried, but...
Did you ever see them before Chester passed?
I did not.
Bummer.
Well, so that's the thing, too. We have talked about this before. We've talked about this is the movie theater back when we both worked there.
Chester hadn't died when I lived at the movie theater.
Nope. He actually didn't die until a couple years ago.
Yeah.
However, in chronological order, they have Hybrid Theory, and then Meteora, and then they took a break.
That's where
they came back for Minutes to Midnight, and that's where like anything after Meteora, it's like it's fine.
That's where I got my introduction to Linkin Park, was the Minutes to Midnight album. So, like, there's a heavy dose of nostalgia, but, like, reflecting back on it all these years, like, when you hear everything before Minutes to Midnight, I can see why, like, loyal fans of Linkin Park were like, well, this is different. But I liked the different because it was my brand new.
Yeah.
You know?
And, well, that's the thing, too. It's like, I always wanted to see Linkin Park, and I considered it a handful of times, but I never wanted to go see them and have them perform their other songs.
Like their
like
newer
I wish
things
they would just do like a Hybrid Theory, Meteora, like throwback tour. Then I'd go.
Did they continue after Chester? Are they still going?
I don't know if they're still going. I know Mike Shinoda,
the rapper
the other
guy?
lead singer, the rapper guy, just dropped his own album.
Oh, sweet.
But I don't think they're going anymore.
Yeah, I knew that they did.
I think
like
they're still on like this indefinite pause.
I knew they did like a benefit concert like they did for Taylor Hawkins, which just happened with Foo Fighters, where it was like a bunch of different artists came in, but I didn't know anything past that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where it ended.
It's a bummer. Did you see anything from the Foo Fighters? Were you a big Foo Fighters guy at all?
A little bit. Can I talk about the Foo Fighters?
Oh, yeah?
Because oh boy, why am I spacing? What's the lead singer of Foo Fighters?
Dave Grohl.
Dave Grohl, drummer Nirvana. He had that mini stint where he wanted to film I don't know if you knew about this. I think this was in your New York time. He was in Cadillac, at the Clam Lake and everything, because he was the front runner to direct the Kiss documentary.
No. So at this point, hopefully we're recording. I would say that we're probably rolling at this point. Just for context, John and I grew up in a town that is unfortunately well known for being where Kiss performed 50 years ago. Just one show, one time. They went to Cadillac one single time and performed 50 years ago for a high school football game, I think it was.
Yeah, I'll give a little context. Basically, the football team would warm up in the locker room before games listening to Kiss. That's all it was.
In the 70s.
Yeah, in the 70s. And Kiss got word of it, and they're like, that's pretty cool. And they came and actually performed a live show at the Cadillac High School, and they were there for like the homecoming parade and everything. And I'm not gonna lie, at the time, that is pretty cool.
In the 70s.
I mean, even if today, like if any artist
No, it's not.
came to any school, I mean, it's not. I don't know.
It's how far they took it
unique.
afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Is like the actual act is cool. However, what we have not got to in the story yet is they almost every year since have hosted a Kiss parade. They have hosted, like they, I would say every other week, there is a front page headline called Cadillac's History.
Yep.
And they talk about the Kiss history in Cadillac as if nobody has heard about it so far.
And well, go ahead. Well, I don't know if I'm talking about the plaque, right? Are you getting the plaque? Okay.
I couldn't even tell you how much it weighs, but it's more than 6 feet tall. It's this huge, I think it's granite, like a black granite.
It's expensive
monument.
Stone.
And on it is just Cadillac's Kiss history. It's insane.
It's as if Kiss was on tour and rolled their tour bus right outside the Cadillac High School, and they all died right there. And so they've placed a memorial on the side of the road next to the school with a picture of Kiss ingrained, like it's not just like slapped on the slab, it's ingrained.
Yep.
With like, this is a dedication memorial, or a memorial dedicated to when Kiss came and celebrated us. And I remember it was the 50-year anniversary, and there was like a Facebook video where Kiss all got together and they're like, we've been hearing that Cadillac remembers Kiss, but don't worry, Cadillac, because Kiss hasn't forgotten you either. And that was the whole video. They didn't come back. They didn't come back. There wasn't a reunion tour. There wasn't anything. And people lost their shit because they're like, oh my God, they remember us. Like, the most exciting thing to ever happen to that city, besides, I think there was also a Donald Trump rally. And that's it. And that's all that's ever happened in that town. And people eat that shit up.
Well, then they would go as far, too, as they'd have like a Kiss cover band every couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
Perform at like the local high school auditorium.
Do you remember what the band was called?
People. I don't. Hold on, I wonder if I can do.
I'm sure that you can. I'm sure it's researchable because they got the same one like every time.
Yeah, I think it's literally just called the Cadillac History Project.
It's so bad, man. Oh. So that's a decent enough transition into explaining how we got out of that town. Obviously, it's a small little town. Maybe 10,000 people there?
Yeah, I think the last time I looked at it, it was up to like 15. But I remember the entirety of me living there in elementary school. I remember like kind of when I first started to learn like what the internet was and Google. I remember Googling like, oh, what's the population of Cadillac? And it's like 10,000 people. I'm like, that's crazy. That's more than more people that I see all the day because I'm a child.
Yep.
And then I Google like Chicago
millions
population, and I'm like, oh,
well,
we are very small.
I grew up right next to Cadillac in Lake City, which is even smaller. It has a population of maybe 1,000 people. I think it's actually still under 1,000. Lots of tourists, lots of like, what do they call them? Snowbirds. People who just come there for the summer and then leave in the winter or whatever. But yeah, so there's not a lot to do in a small town like that. So John and I escaped pretty much straight out of high school after, well, you went to college. So talk about a little bit about your college experience. Where'd you go? What'd you go for?
Yeah, so I actually stayed, graduated 2013, high school.
Mm-hmm.
I stayed in Cadillac for another 2 years. I went to a community college up in Traverse City.
Oh yeah, you went up north. I forgot.
Yep.
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Tuesday, Thursdays. Yep. I just commuted for a couple of years. And then I ended up going down to Grand Valley, here in Grand Rapids. Well, technically Allendale. It's all the same.
It's all the same.
And yeah, the reason I moved there, I still wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do for a degree and
So
whatnot.
before you go there, then
Yeah.
what was the NMC thing for? Just for the community credits?
Community credits, just I was trying to take anything that would transfer.
Sure.
And I knew going into it too, some of the courses were going to be easier at a community college and a university. So
And
I'm like,
cheaper.
I'll try it. And cheaper. So I will take a couple of those, have them come over, and yeah, then I went to Grand Valley. But one thing I do want to say about NMC is NMC was kind of a joke. However,
in the sense that community college is a joke, or the sense that
in the sense that, oh boy, there's
hit it.
The professors didn't really care as much.
Great.
It was a very stark difference when I moved to Allendale and I was going to Grand Valley with to an actual university where this is now like a professor's full-time job.
Right.
Whereas I can tell at a community college, it was just like they're doing it after work.
Which sucks because a professor's still a professor and there's education to be had. So like the fact that, I mean, that's a big part of it is professors in community colleges are overworked and underpaid. Yeah. So there's not as much care.
Yeah. So the professors didn't really care. They cared a little bit. They wanted you to learn, but the second you wanted to dive a little deeper, go to office hours, do anything, they was just not there.
Yeah.
And then, I didn't expect to go to a community college that Cadillac was 45 minutes away from.
Well, Cadillac had Baker College, which is notorious for credits not transferring anywhere.
Correct.
So,
but my thing is I knew for a fact that I wasn't going to make a ton of friends because probably a lot of people there were commuting to or lived in Traverse City, but Cadillac is not conveniently close.
Right.
But it was very eye-opening because everybody, again, it was eye-opening when I went to Grand Valley because everyone at Grand Valley lives there or lives close. They want to hang out. Hey, do you want to join this club? I didn't really join any clubs, but it's like, hey, do you want to hang out? We're going to go down to wherever and study, work on a project. At NMC, everyone's goal was to get in and go home.
Yes.
That's it. I would say, I think they had dorms there, but the dorms held 100 people.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. A lot of people don't even know they have dorms.
Yeah, I didn't. That's what I'm saying. I didn't know they even had dorms.
And one of the people that we worked with at the movie theater actually lived there. I don't know if you remember Joe Safago.
Oh yeah, I talk to him all the time.
Yeah, he lived at the dorms for, I think it was either a semester or a year, and we're like, hey.
For context, this person Joe is now currently in the U.S. Air Force in Alaska. Maybe we'll get him on the podcast.
But it was funny though because I was talking to Joe, and I was like, "What do you guys do here? Are there clubs? Are there sports teams?" And he's like, "Every once in a while, we'll play tag."
Yeah, that's so Joe. That's such a Joe answer. We'll watch SpongeBob or play tag.
Yeah,
that's Joe.
But the thing is, I don't doubt that.
No,
that's
not at
all. But the thing too is that I will say some of the. As I remember going there, and I'm like, "This is dumb. This is stupid." I'm going here to get credits, and I go home.
Yeah.
I was commuting with my friend Jared at the time. And I say at the time as in we were commuting at the time, not that he was a friend at the time.
Right, but because he ended up being your roommate here in Grand Rapids, right? Okay.
Yep. So when we moved, he was one of my roommates. The other roommate was Trevor, both of which were groomsmen in my wedding, including yourself.
Including me? I'm glad you said that. Okay.
But I remember just oh, this is so annoying. I'm glad I have Jared here because I would not be going otherwise. And when I think about it in hindsight, though, I don't necessarily remember a lot of the bad times.
At Grand Valley in general?
At NMC.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really think about it. Yes, I remember, how annoying it was and stuff. But,
because it's school. It's an objective. Yeah. It's a task you have to do.
But the core memories I have are just Jared and I having a fun time driving up and messing around in Traverse City.
Yeah. Well, because when you live in Cadillac, too, it's so small. You have the biggest store is a Walmart, and then there's a Meijer right next to it. And beyond that, there's not really things to do. So going up to Traverse City alone, aside from school, was the thing to do because it's the closest big city.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I just remember we oh man, I could do a deep dive
That's what
on
you're here
the
for.
entire NMC, but maybe that's a conversation for later.
You
But
could be
yeah,
on
we would
another
just
episode.
yeah, oh man, we would always just do we'd go out of our way to do the dumbest stuff. And I remember on the last day we were at NMC. It was the last day of the last semester, and we Snapchat was still big at the time. I would say Snapchat is still
You know what?
big,
It's
but
still
it's not
it's
as
making a comeback. I think
yeah,
Snapchat.
it's not as like prevalent as it used to be though.
No, it was
And
huge.
that's something I want to talk about too is how everybody, as far as social media goes, has planted their flag on usually one platform,
Guilty.
and then everyone's dispersed from there.
Guilty.
Whereas back in high school, it's like everybody was on Facebook, everybody had a Snapchat
And
like,
a Twitter.
and a Twitter.
Yep. And then Instagram blew up, and it was just photos.
Yep.
Yep.
But going back, yeah, we on our last day of school, I remember documenting our last day, but not as like, oh, this is my last day of class, and this is
what's
the
up,
last...
guys? Here with Trevor. We're on our last day of school.
I remember like walking around with my phone, and I was like Snapchatting, but it was like I would like take a wad of like paper towel from drying my hands, and I'm like last paper towel shot at NMC, and then it's like last time throwing pine cones on this side of the road at NMC. Like that was the whole.
Tell me this montage exists. You have it saved.
I don't think it's saved.
Bummer.
Like many things in Snapchat, it has gone to the wind.
It's gone forever. That was before you could save. Remember when that feature was introduced that you could save things in Snapchat?
Yep.
And people were freaking out about it.
Yep.
So when you'd made the transition to from NMC to Grand Valley, had you decided at that point that there was a major you wanted to pursue, or did you just decide I'm done with the community college, I'm going to university?
I decided that it was time.
Yeah.
I decided that it was time to move to Grand Valley. That's where a lot of my friends that I was friends with in high school had gone to Grand Valley from the start.
That's the big university that people will go to around here.
Yeah, it's far enough away. I would say the top 4 that people from Cadillac went to were Ferris, which is like 45 minutes.
Ferris.
Grand Valley, which is like an hour 20. Michigan State, and then U of M.
Yep.
So the top 4.
Yep.
And I just like I was, it's time to get out of here. Let's go. And I still had not decided what I wanted to do. The entire time I was pursuing courses at NMC, it was for business. Very broad.
But also getting the prereqs out of the way early, right? Did you have
Correct.
to do any prereqs when you got in it? I didn't go to college, so I don't understand the college experience.
I had to do a couple prereqs at GV when I got there, but I did manage to skip out on a lot of them and a lot of hard ones. For instance, at NMC, I took astronomy. I almost said astrology.
I would have loved the astronomy class.
So I took astronomy, and it was led by... I almost said David Dobrik. That's not true.
He got you really close to the cosmos by swinging you in a giant crane and launching you up.
Yep. But I remember. I'll have to get back to you on the name of the professor. I would say top 3 professors of NMC or GV I've ever had. It was like the one. Yeah, at NMC. It was the one like shining light at NMC for the astronomy course.
For the fact that it was astronomy and he made it cool, or was he just a forgiving professor? Like
both. He was a really cool professor. He had a very dry dad sense of humor.
Love it.
But he also didn't take himself too serious. But he managed to explain space and planets in a way where you're like, oh, this is actually really cool.
Cool.
And we would actually go to, I didn't even realize this, Traverse City has like an astronomy tower.
Yep.
And we'd go out there. And
the observatory.
Yes.
Yep.
That's a better way to put it.
Yeah. An astronomy tower.
Yes. And so we'd go out there, and there was one point too where he's like, okay, this is the only time of the year you can really look at it. So if you look through here, you can see Saturn.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked through it, and it's like literally just right there. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool.
It's super cool. When I found out that Traverse City had that, I was really excited.
Yeah. And the reason I get into that is because I remember one of my friends who went to Grand Valley right away had to take an astronomy class as well
In Grand Valley.
at Grand Valley. And she says it was like one of the hardest courses she ever had to take.
Wow.
Whereas Jared and I took that course at NMC, and we both passed with flying colors.
Hell yeah.
And it was just super fun. And I would say it was one of my okay, I'm coming out of other classes and going to this one. I can finally catch my breath.
Cool.
So, yeah, going back, went to Grand Valley. I had no idea what I wanted to major in. I was still going for business. I was kind of thinking sales.
For what? But so far, just for context, there's been an important theme so far in these podcasts that when I'm introducing the guest in a way, my question is what do you do? And then kind of what did you expect that you would do? But I haven't really had the college conversation yet. So when you go into college and you're really not sure what it is that you want to do, how do you end up chasing majors?
Yeah, so I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I just kind of figured I will figure it out. But business, just majoring in business general, is a pretty broad place to start.
Right.
If I end up going that track, I graduate with that degree, I could probably go anywhere.
Yep.
I'm not necessarily specialized in a certain category, but I have a degree in business.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, sounds good. Welcome to the business.
It's a good start.
Yep. So I was going there. It's still unsure what I wanted to do. And it was my very first semester at Grand Valley.
On campus.
On campus. And everybody at Grand Valley has to take an intro to computing. It was CIS 150 or whatever.
Okay.
And in that course, you learn the basics. You learn Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and then you get
all
a little
of the
bit
things
into,
I've already completely forgotten.
Yep. And then you get into database a little bit. But my professor, which I don't know if it was just a stroke of luck, because a lot of professors teach this course, but the professor that I managed to have, David Lang is his name.
Is that why David Dobrik came to mind?
Yep. He was it's hilarious. He teaches 3 courses. He teaches the intro to computing, the course that everyone has to take. It's kind of like a business readiment. This is the course where you polish up your resumes and you learn interviewing skills. And he actually sets up for the career fair and stuff.
Oh, okay.
And then he teaches the capstone, which is your final project of the entire degree. And those are the 3 courses he takes.
Capstone?
Yep, CAPSTONE.
Okay.
And so I just think it's hilarious that the only courses he teaches are the very beginning or the very end, and not a whole lot in between.
Nothing in the middle.
But I remember taking his course, and he would kind of go out of the way to be like, oh yeah, we can learn about Word today, or I can just talk to you about computers. And we're like, let's talk about computers.
Yeah. No assignments.
Yeah, and he was actually talking to us about the degree, the degree being information systems, computer science, those. And it finally clicked with me, this is what I want to do. I've always loved computers. I feel and I'll fast forward a little bit. I am now in a role in an IT field.
Oh, we're gonna get there.
Where I manage 2 different teams, but I'm always doing interviews with people. And as I say this, it's I've always loved technology. I've loved computers ever since I was young. Is the most common answer I ever get.
Really?
At all the time, I love computers. I've been computing since I was a chitlin.
That's what we call them.
But I will say though, I have always loved computers, and I was I think this is what I want to do. I've been kind of waiting for my interest to fall into a degree, and I found it.
So when you land on an interest, and you've already started pursuing a particular degree, how does the shift come? Do you then have to throw out some of the credits that you've taken and just say that, well, that was for a loss, that was just because, or how does that work?
So it depends. How it works is a lot of the credits I specifically took because they're broad. Everybody needs to take an issues course,
Okay.
and everybody needs to take a science course of some
Right.
sort, because Grand Valley is considered a liberal arts college, which means you're just rounded in everything. Even though you majored in one thing, you have at least taken a class in every other specific
Yeah.
thing. I had to take Art 101. I had to take a music course, which was just history of rock and roll.
I want to pick up on that in a minute, but keep going.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and so you know, even though I was going for whether I was going for business or I was going for IT, I had to take some sort of science course. Even though I was going for computer science, I had to still take a science
Right.
course, which my astronomy one carried
That
over.
did count. Okay, that's
Did
what I was
count.
going to ask.
But it also depends too. Let's say I was kind of getting deeper into like the business and I was starting to take like business courses. You look at a course catalog and it says like BUS 301, 350. Those wouldn't transfer.
I see.
Because now you're getting further into a degree where it's the equivalent of like, okay, well, I was studying business, but now I want to switch into nursing. Nothing's going to transfer because like they're not the same
Right.
thing. So
but
luckily,
some can, if they decide to double major, is that the phrase?
Double major.
Then they can continue in that, right?
Yeah. And I also lucked out too because Grand Valley's information system degree, which is a fancy way of just saying IT.
Okay.
I keep saying information. It's just
That's
IT.
fine.
That's really what it is. Computer science is a little bit more coding heavy. Like computer science is going to get you your software developer, application builder kind of thing, whereas IT is kind of dealing with the actual hardware. You're dealing with networking being like the internet, stuff like that. But anyways, I was going for information systems, and luckily Grand Valley's has it built in where you automatically get a minor in business as well.
Oh.
I have no idea what a minor actually means.
Me either, because what's the difference between a minor and a bachelor?
Well, that's the thing. It's like a bachelor would be a 4-year degree, and a minor, I think, is like a 2.
Oh, I thought it was vice versa.
No, so bachelor is 4.
Okay.
I think in chronological order, it's like high school, diploma, associate's, bachelor, major, doctorate.
Okay.
But anyways, yeah, luckily any of the business courses that I had taken that wouldn't have transferred did, because I had a built-in business minor as well.
So you officially have a minor degree in business. So this is still a pursuit that you could take realistically.
Correct. And I almost until we filmed this that I forgot I even had it. That's how important it is.
I see.
Because that's the thing too. Let's say I'm going to apply for a job, and it's not going to be computer related, IT related. I'm going to apply for a sales position. I could put that I have a minor in sales, but I don't think anyone just combing through my resume would look at that and be like, all right. They'd be like, okay, moving on.
What do you think would be more relevant, the minor in sales or the fact that we were both managers at the movie theater when we were young?
Experience, for
sure. That's what I mean. The experience of it all is the college degree. Not obviously your college experience worked out for you, but that's sort of the hidden scam now. It's like, well, experience is more what matters more.
Yep. And like let's talk about this a little bit. So I went to college. I have my 4-year bachelor degree. I have a minor in business. Where I can honestly say I have learned concepts at Grand Valley, or just a university as a whole, where I think I would have struggled to learn them on my own. Yeah. But do I feel like I got 4 years and that much money worth of knowledge? Absolutely not. And do I think somebody should need that? No. But
the experience of the social side of college to me is what ends up making it worth it for more. Sorry to cut off your point there, but like that to me is what the outside is missing, is the, like with my career, I learn a lot online. But I'm not in a class setting with others who can challenge my ideas and ask questions, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that's a good point. And that's the thing too, it's not even just social in the course, but it's just like social. Just it's different when you're surrounded by people who all are interested in the same
Right.
thing. Even outside of school, it's like, hey, do you guys want to come over? We'll just play like Mario Party. Everybody's
Yeah.
down. But which is something again that was lacking at NMC, because it's like, hey, do you want it? And they'd cut you off right there and be like,
no, I'm going home and driving 45 minutes back. So.
Yep. But so kind of going back to like, so I have a degree, and no, I don't think a degree should ever be relevant, depending on the job.
Depending on the job.
But with that being said, we can say that all day and whatnot. But David, I know you're kind of like freelance, doing your own creative thing. But if you're to like flip a switch and just say, you know what, I'm gonna buckle down and I'm gonna get like an actual office job, whatnot. I can only imagine not having a degree is going to make it really tough.
Yeah, especially for pay.
Yes.
Like, I could probably get entry-level positions, but there are certain things that you are not allowed to even apply for if you don't, or your application's just thrown out if you don't have a degree. Even if I have more experience, the fact that the degree is not slapped on. Is that what you're saying? Or
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just where it gets frustrating, is you can apply for a job, and it just says must have a degree.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, in what? And they're like, just a
bachelor's in something.
Degree. And like, okay, well, I could have my degree in, I don't know, art, but I'm applying for business, like sales. But you're just saying as long as I have a degree, that's all that matters. And they say yes. To which at that point you're like, that sounds kind of sketchy.
Yeah.
Kind of a scam. Why does that make me any more qualified than someone who doesn't have a degree?
As someone who
all?
didn't go to college, this is a real world experience that I've had in the past, and is directly responsible for me being freelance, because at a certain point it becomes my only option. Like, I can't get these cinematography jobs or video director or media director or media consultant jobs if I don't have the degree at all. So I just got to do it all myself.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, as much as people want to kind of bang their fists and yell and get mad, and I'm upset too, but at the end of the day, like, if not having a degree is going to put you at a disadvantage that is almost unrecoverable, what are you going to do?
That said, I will also sympathize with the now we're coming fresh off the heels of this student loan forgiveness that may be challenged in the courts ultimately, but it seems like it could pass through. We don't necessarily need into the politics side of it, but like, I do have sympathy for the fact that these people were promised a bill of goods with the degrees they got, did go tens of thousands of dollars into debt just to specifically have this piece of paper that says they can get this job. I do understand a person with a college degree getting paid more than me because they have more loans to pay back. But I think the argument with the college loan forgiveness is, which I'm in favor of, even though I received no college tuition, or I didn't go to college, no Pell Grant, no nothing. I guess what I'm trying to say is, the argument to be made against it is, well, you're $50,000 in debt because of college, and you now have a job that can pay you more to pay it back. I'm $50,000 in debt because of generational poverty, and I can't make that back because I couldn't afford to go to college. And I don't mean me specific. I'm just saying that's the argument. So a lot of people are just opting instead to not go to college and then get this freelance or pursue this freelance thing because it's their only avenue into the field.
Right.
Go ahead. I just have.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, that just is a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah,
too,
a big one.
The accessibility of education, and it's just, it's a whole thing too. And I mean, kind of going back to the student loan forgiveness, and when I say forgiveness, it's $10,000 as long as you meet the criteria.
$150,000.
So much money.
I think it's $150,000 or $100,000 or less. Maybe $125,000 or less, you get $10,000 reduced. For couples, it's $20,000 or $250. But if you got Pell Grants, you get an additional $10,000.
Yep, and it's just such a rabbit hole.
Because you could get into the interest conversation too about how.
Well, I mean, not only can you get into like the actual loan structure, but it's such a rabbit hole to talk to people who never went to school, and they're like, well, why are they getting that? but then you have people too who have paid back their loans.
Like, why not me?
And they're like, well, why is this not helping me?
Which I don't agree with.
It's the classic, like, if I had to walk up a hill with like weights strapped to my legs to get to the top, you should too.
Which
kind of thing.
I think is fucked. I think the more inherent flaw is that, and this is the rabbit hole.
It is a rabbit hole.
The more inherent flaw is that, to me, it lets colleges and universities who scammed the students off the hook, because it's paying back the colleges who are now not, like, there's deferred interest till December now, I think.
Yep.
But like and now a cap where it's like, you know, the max is like 5% of your income towards your payback or something like that. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, like, first of all, 5% is a nice reduction, but the fact that it's the interest that's killing people in the first place. You know, they've paid $10,000 and they only ultimately, you know, and they might be $2,000 further in the hole than they were when they started 4 years ago paying it back. So,
there's someone I work with, we were on a work call, and we were just kind of going off on a tangent talking, and they were telling me that they had about $60,000 in student loans, and this was pre-COVID.
Yes.
At pause of payments, pause of interest.
When it was capped at 10% of your total income.
Yep. They said that they had spent about 5 years paying off $16,000, and I think it was like of their $50,000 loan. And when they check their balance right now, it is more than $50,000.
Yep. That's the scam.
Yeah.
So you can get all this stuff reduced, but if the interest doesn't get capped, or the universities and just the institutions that like are incentivized to have the interest go so high, when there's no penalties for that, we're going to be right back where we started in 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, and so that's what I tell people. You know, I talk to people and they're very like, the government shouldn't be doing this. This is not, and I don't necessarily agree with that. But what I do agree with is this does not solve the core issue.
No,
this is the world's tiniest Band-Aid.
On a bleeding wound.
Think about it. I think the average first year of college tuition, assuming you like live on campus, it's your freshman year, is like 20 to 30,000.
Yep.
So essentially, the government is forgiving half of your first year, and that's
there's
it.
a large percentage of people who make it their first year through college and then drop out without a degree. So they are then on the hook for that 20 to 30,000 with no degree to pay it forward. And even going to college for a year does not give you an advantage in the hiring process. So
let's do this. I just looked at average cost of college in Michigan.
And a 4-year degree?
4-year degree.
University? I'm going to say the average is anywhere.
So this is, tuition being like, this is what 1 year.
1 year.
Will cost you. 1 year.
Average.
I'm talking 2 semesters, taking full credit load.
Average tuition, probably, I feel like I'm going to be totally out. Just 10 to 20 is probably correct.
It's about 25 to 30.
Jesus. And there's no sliding process that as you stay longer it gets cheaper, correct?
I'm seeing a couple different numbers here. I'm seeing anywhere from like 22 to 25, and then I'm seeing 25 to 27, but like in the ballpark.
Insanity.
It is there. So when I feel like when people are like, whoa, $10,000, I'm like, I hate to say it's a drop in the bucket.
Well, and even if you consider inflation, like 30, 40 years ago, college tuition was like 75% cheaper than it is now. Like, yes.
I think the old saying is like, you could work a minimum wage job over a summer to pay for your year of school. Whereas a minimum wage job now could like
maybe pay for your books.
Get you rent.
Maybe.
You can maybe live at the school.
Well, is there still you know, you haven't been in college for a little while, but if there's a lot of like literature that you have to buy, upfront costs, but like have things switched? How have we not gone digital? How is that not?
So digital's worse.
Oh, really?
Let me tell you about this. So depending on the course you take, you had to buy, and I forget the actual name, but there's like one monopoly company that owns this thing. And they essentially, you'd buy a book. It's a new plastic like sealed book and in it is a code to access your course that you're taking, the online portal. And in the portal, that's where you do your homework, you submit it, and I understand the convenience, but it takes all the work off the professor, and that's why they do it. And the reason is like, okay, well, someone just submits their homework and it's automatically graded. I, as the professor, don't have to grade hundreds of people's homework, and I just move on. And I understand it, but what they don't tell you until you start there is it's one code per course. So if I'm taking, let's say I'm taking 5 classes and 3 of them are going to use that, I have to buy 3 separate books with 3 separate codes, even though they're all for the same website, because I need to get access to 3 separate courses, and that's just per semester. And then let's say I bought the book and the sealed book was $150. If I go to sell the book back and they're like, okay, well, you use the code, even if you like bought the book and just put it on a shelf and you at the end of the semester go to sell it back and it's a pristine, untouched book, they're like, I can buy it back for like $10.
It's just like the drive it off the lot principle. Like as soon as your vehicle gets off the parking lot, like it depreciates 60% in value or something. Just because you paid for it. Like it's so gross, dude.
So going back, I preferred when professors wanted me to have like physical copies of a book, because I can go to, man, I even forgot there's a handful of different like used college textbook. I think Chegg is one of them. And I could snag them for cheap. But what I would even do is I would see how long I could get in a semester without even having to buy one to determine whether I needed it. Because unless a professor's saying, open to page 26 and do problems 1 through 5, classic like high school level kind of thing, I would see if I didn't need the book at all. And a majority of the time I didn't. So I could even get through an entire semester not even having a book. As long as I went to the courses and I paid attention, I took notes, and I learned what I needed to learn, I could get by without ever needing the book. But the thing with digital is if it was just a digital book and I could download it and now I have the book, cool. But the second they learned that they can essentially microtransaction this thing,
it's a microtransaction,
put a code behind it, it was instantly like, I don't want electronic stuff anymore.
Well, so it's not so much that the technology doesn't exist. It's that the pay incentives behind the technology is not where it should be. Like, we are in the future. We don't need these physical. It's nice to have physical textbooks because you never know about electricity grids or whatever. But, like, it's not for lack of, like, well, we can't digitize it all. It's just more expensive. Which is gross.
And, I mean, and that, too, when people who haven't gone to college think about how college is expensive, unless you go or you're a parent of someone who goes, I don't think people realize how expensive it actually is.
Because there's that same mentality of like, it's hard for me, so it must be hard for you, where it's like, it's expensive, but like if you're going to college, like too bad, until you get into these little like microtransactions. You're like, really it's that much?
Like, oh well, the only thing you have to do is pay for tuition. It's like, man, I wish it was there. I don't think you realize that's I mean, it's the larger fraction of this pie chart of expenses, but it is unreal.
If I went to college, I would want my money to go towards the professor's income who was there. Like, they are, because first of all, that directly incentivizes them to be better teachers, as if they can get more students, you know? My room and board, so my food and stuff, and the literal physical necessities. Beyond that, what are you charging me for?
Okay. You ready for John's hot take?
Hit me.
You ready for the hot take?
You about to say abolish the education system?
Either people are about to agree or have a lot of hate.
Don't worry,
here.
I have no followers.
I believe, bar none, that if schools didn't have sports, a lot of the cost would go, or a lot of the a lot of the money being paid for those are going to other things. Now, granted, I am aware that some sports create income for the school. After they pay for all their expenses and whatnot, they create income. And especially when you go to larger schools, let's take like University of Michigan, for example. They are such a big school that I can only imagine that they profit.
They have net profit.
Yeah, net profit. But then again, you think, you have tens of thousands of students worth of tuition. You're thinking, okay, well, let me just Google Jim Harbaugh, I think that's pronounced
That's
his name.
U of M.
The University of Michigan, the football coach. His average salary is about $7.3 million.
Yep.
And you're like, man, that's a lot of tuition.
Yeah.
But let's take not even as big schools. Let's take Grand Valley, for example. Grand Valley is not a D1 school.
I will say, quick pickup on that.
Yes.
Even though I'm agreeing with you almost full scale.
Yeah.
As far as like the sports itself, that's where a lot of like merchandising and advertising revenue comes in. So they get money from that, but still, yeah, that's a lot of tuition.
Oh yeah. So like, let's take Grand Valley, for example. Grand Valley is not a D1 school. They actually, to my understanding, the president refuses to we could be.
Really?
But the president categorizes or refuses to categorize as a D1 because the second D1 hits, you have to meet all these regulations.
It's a tax status thing.
And it is required that average credit hour cost per class increases as well. So I'm walking around Grand Valley. We have this massive football program, and they're good. Like
very good.
Grand Valley's
very good. They have been for years.
Grand Valley's football team is like near undefeated for years, and they're good. But it's like I'm watching this entire roster of football players who are there tuition free, and I'm watching all the buildings being built. A handful of them are new sports complex, updating the existing sport complexes, but then I'm like looking around and I'm like, why is that money not going towards updating the existing buildings that are already here that are really old? And then, I mean, there's no way, Grand Valley specifically, that the sports are creating as much income as they're funneling into it.
Well, you don't even have to go as high as Grand Valley. You can even bring it back down to the high school level. That was a serious topic of controversy in Lake City. Even though we had, so we had about 1,000 people, and I don't really have a dog in this fight. I don't know what it takes to run a city budget and where that goes as far as schooling goes and whatever for public education. But I just remember constantly, before there was the reinvestment in the new school, which did you know that Lake City has a new high school?
Yep.
Yeah.
I saw pictures. It's
big. It's way overdue. But for decades, all the money just continued to dump into the football stadium because the football stadium was Lake City's money earner. Like, people came to those games. There was a good local showing. And just all the money year after year got dumped into us having a better stadium, when like the elementary school would have like boiler room issues every year, and there'd be leaks every time there'd be a rain, and like power would go out during like snowstorms and stuff. Like, why are we spending all this money on the stadium that's already nice when like there's clear... Now that's just the socialist in me, i.e. Bernie Sanders over here in the corner.
Well, I mean, let's even talk about Cadillac too. I had a chance to talk to one of like the higher board members at the school, and he's like, yeah, the Cadillac boys football team profits. By the time you like sell all the tickets at the games and whatnot, not only does it pay for all the expenses of the team throughout the year, this is travel and everything, but they still come out on top. Every other sport at Grand Valley does
correct.
Not. Or sorry, at Cadillac
most
did
places.
Not. And I'm talking like soccer, tennis, basketball, volleyball, and now you're like having to still pay for all these other sports, and it's just a net loss. Now that is not me having a cry to action saying cancel all sports. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that when it comes to why things are so expensive. It's because a lot of the money gets funneled in that way.
Right. It's a reinvestment in the investment, but
Yep.
I don't know. That's just we can pivot away from the college corruption shit. There's a couple fun little questions and notes that I wanted to ask you before we actually get into a few other things I want to talk about. Well, I'm gonna do this just quick offhand comment that I thought was pretty funny. For your bachelor party, the group of us went to an Airbnb and then we went to an escape. Well, we went to an escape room and then we went to the Airbnb and
we did paintball.
We paintball. Oh yeah, which I have. I'm not even going to show it, but I still have I will have forever a massive scar on my leg because of that.
Yep.
But we went and we did an escape room, and I've been donating plasma recently, and in order to sign up for your appointment, you have to like upload information and register and whatever. And in order to do that, I have to like submit my picture. And for some reason, when I downloaded the app to sign up, it already had one photo saved. Like, you know how in iPhone settings you can now like select. The only photo that it had saved was the group of us at the end when we finished the escape room. Whoa. I don't understand why that is. I didn't edit any permissions or anything like that. It just had that one photo weird. Saved. Thought that was a little strange.
That's weird. That's hilarious. That's weird. I thought you were going to tell me, as you were prefacing this story, that you're like donating plasma and we were talking about the escape room. I thought you were going to be like, and when I went to go like collect my payment, they're like, why don't you step into this room? And I had to like fight my way out.
You have 1 hour to donate the plasma. If you can't get out in the hour, you just bleed out. Okay, so that's the escape room comment I wanted to talk about. As far as the IT stuff, just computer sciences and computer knowledge itself. Did you have a MySpace?
Yep. I did not.
So you never even got to get into the cool HTML coding. Did you know about any of that?
I've had to create websites and stuff from scratch with HTML. However, I do know that MySpace, you could have your own like custom
background,
by editing HTML and everything.
Yeah, one of the big things with MySpace profile creation was learning how to code and like learning how to, and if not just like create codes, you could create codes, but just like creating embed codes and like putting them in like this little blockchain of shit, and then you could change your profile song with the same thing. I just didn't know if you had that experience. Which I do want to trace back to the HTML
For anyone listening, by the way, the quickest way to look at HTML on any website you're on at all is just to be on the website and press F12.
And that gives you all of the code?
Bring you the whole HTML structure of an entire website.
Interesting. I wonder if that was how we did it on MySpace, because I don't remember anything about the editing process. I just remember that's how it was done. And then as soon as you get off of MySpace, almost completely forgetting how that was done. Because I had MySpace from like, I don't know if I had it in 5th grade, but I did have it all of middle school up until probably sophomore year of high school. That's when Facebook really started to blow up for me. So 2009, 2010.
Yeah, I think the first social media I had was
Bebo.
Facebook.
Oh, okay.
Facebook.
You didn't have a Bebo?
No. I to this day don't even have a Twitter.
It's not really all that worth it. I have it for like scrolling purposes, not for engaging purposes.
When we were in high school, I was able to catch on really fast, even before they got this predatory. How predatory the apps are. They want you to keep scrolling. They want to catch your interest. And I knew that, and I just didn't want another thing. And I remember one of my classes at Cadillac required me to create a Twitter. And I actually said, like, I am not going to create a Twitter. I don't want another thing.
Good for you.
They're like, well, you need this was so hilarious. They were like, yeah, well, if you want to get a job one day, they're gonna like be looking at social media, and like Twitter is a good thing to build up. Kind of.
Can
like
you imagine if job prospects were based on your Twitter these days?
No, and I'm like, absolutely not. I think the only thing better is to not have it. And Oh, she hated me, but I got an exception to not have to make one.
Although, John, do you have TikTok?
I don't have TikTok.
Oh, good for you, me either.
I do not have TikTok.
Sweet. Okay, cool. Yeah, I have.
I don't know if you have to jot this down or anything.
No, good.
One thing I want to talk about in a future episode, because I could talk about it forever, is my hatred of LinkedIn.
Well, because you do a lot of hiring, and
so I don't actually do any of the hiring. I just do the interviews. Like our HR team goes through all the applications that come through and everything, and then any of them that are kind of like worth interviewing make their way to me.
So let's just pick up on that then. We probably got about 10 or 15 more minutes that we could. So at your specific job now, what is your, like if I came up to you and said, John, what do you do? Your answer is?
I am the lab and field team lead.
Lab and field team lead at, you don't have to say the business if you don't want. Worksited.
A IT company in Holland.
So you do a lot of outsourcing for IT for other companies.
Correct. Any company that is not large enough to justify having their own IT company, because I mean IT costs quite a bit.
Yeah.
And they've grown enough where it's bigger than just like one person can help people. But they're not big enough to justify hiring a full-time person or having a whole program or whatnot. We'll help them out. But we'll also help out companies that even are large enough to have their own internal IT, but they need help switching their entire infrastructure from one platform like Zoom to Microsoft Teams and get in like the Microsoft suite stuff. We'll help with that. And there's a variety of other things, but my team directly, the field team is anytime we have to go on site. Someone's having a complete network outage and they're like, we can't work business today because no one can even log on. Come out here and I'll send somebody.
So it's not just remote that you
not
do
just
a lot
remote.
Okay.
Well, the actual two departments I managed aren't even remote.
Oh, okay.
One is going out in the field. The other one is the lab. It's our in-house PC setup, repair, troubleshooting, which even though we don't go on site for that, we still have to be in person to like work on the laptops and stuff like that. So
that's how you're able to split your work from home and your in the office stuff. Like when you need to be in the office, it's more.
Correct. So my role is a lot more of an admin role. Admin being I'm not actually doing the groundwork. I'm not going on site. Actually, I did go on site the other day, but like typically I'm not going on site. I'm not doing the computer repairs. I'm doing more of like the managerial future vision of the team. What are the bottlenecks we're running into and how do I fix those? Direct reports, one-on-ones, interviews if we have them. So it allows me to be from home a couple of days a week. But the other days a week I go into the office because there are some stuff I still need to do in the office, but I also like seeing the actual team as well. Yeah. So. Which
is good in you're a team lead. So which is a good, I don't want to use the word superior, but if you're somebody's superior, it's nice to have like one-on-one FaceTime with those people.
Correct. I usually, whether it be in person or remotely, everyone on my team, I think there's now like 10 people total on both teams, like total. And I have a one-on-one with each of them every other week minimum. So,
do you consider this to be a job that gives you creative freedom?
Yeah.
Or like, because I approach the word creativity in like an art sense, but it's not always. Gosh, this alarm! I keep forgetting to turn my alarm off, and it's cut my audio 3 different times. I approach the word creativity in like an artistic sense. So I do a lot of music. I do a lot of actual film work. Was the creative arts ever approach to creativity for you, or has it always been a more niche view?
It's always been a more of a niche view.
Where do you feel most creatively fulfilled in this job?
Creatively being like I can, instead of doing the standard practice, I can kind of do whatever I want a little bit.
What has been the John Kelley way? Like, I don't know if I'm wording this weird.
No, I get what you're saying. So I can answer that question. So the nice thing about the company I work at is it is relatively small. It's big enough that we have like 100 people, but it's small that it still feels small. And if I want to make a change, I can like pitch the idea. If it's not even a big change, I can just do it. But it's nice that there's been many times since even being hired, like I have this idea, let's look into it, or I have this idea to make this change, and I think it would help us this way. Can we just do it? And almost every time they're like, sure, sounds good. Yeah, go for it. Whereas any other job, if it's larger, kind of a more corporate structure, it's like, okay, you have to file a change request and it has to go from here to here and then here to here. And by the time it's actually comes back, it's either not relevant anymore or it's probably a no.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I can, like for instance, we had an issue tracking all of our inventory for a little while. And I'm like, well, why don't we just do this platform? I can have it up and running by tomorrow. And they're like, okay, do it.
Great.
So I would say, yeah, I do get a lot of creativity out of there. And it's nice to just, I mean, technology is always changing. I would say anyone who got a degree in information systems or just IT, computers as a whole, and then proceeds to not do anything with it for 5 years is already pretty outdated.
Yep.
But it's nice too because things are always changing, and it's like, well, why don't we use this new tool? Why don't we use this new thing? But it can always create. It is a double-edged sword though, because it's hard to have any consistent process when things are always changing.
Yeah.
And that's why being in IT, it can be tough for some people because it's always changing. A thing that you did even pretty frequently a year ago could be outdated and like already 2 renditions differently a year later. And it's,
well, just look at technology broadly. That's the case. I mean, if you say social media, there's always new social media, but like phones itself, yes, all iPhones are the same iPhone, but they're really not. Like, there are. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, man, technology blows my mind. I'll put it that way, for good and for bad. Go ahead.
I will just say that for the sake of, I'm a little bummed that we're only just now talking about this because this is one of the things that we wanted to talk to going into. So we will absolutely have a second conversation on this. The technology side is where I feel most intimidated in my field. That like I have the same camera that I'm using for this podcast right now is the same camera that I shoot weddings and music videos with. Because there's a familiarity with the technology itself. If I get my hands on anything different, whether it's a different brand or an upgraded version of this camera, I feel like a caveman. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to laptops or bit rates or metadata. Like, I don't get the technology side of things. I get image composition and I work a lot with story. But technology is so intimidating to me.
Well, that's the thing. And we will definitely come back and talk about this.
Yes.
The topic, the question to be covered is, as technology progresses at such a rapid rate, and now, I mean, look at this, like iPhone 13.
It's one of the biggest cameras.
Unreal camera.
Yes.
That you can just go and buy, and you can, not only is it cheaper than a lot of cameras, but now this is actually a phone that I use every day too.
Yes.
But as technology becomes more accessible, especially from like a content creation setting, this could be cameras, drones, you have your lights, your sound equipment, your lenses. As it becomes more accessible because things get cheaper, what does that mean as a professional?
Well, I think that it's made the word professional irrelevant.
Yeah, well, that's the question I want to talk about too. And again, we can talk about this in the next podcast, kind of let it marinate a little bit.
Yeah, we can explore it a little bit.
As a professional, is it now that everybody can have a camera? Back in the day, you had to purposely go out of your way to get an expensive camera, expensive being like it wasn't great, it just cost a lot. And not a lot of people were willing to do that. So the people that were willing to do that were passionate about what they're doing and professionals.
Yeah.
But now you could film an entire wedding on an iPhone.
And it has been done.
Good.
Yeah. Some of my favorite filmmakers that I follow in the YouTube space say that their iPhone camera is their most widely used camera.
Yep.
Which is why, well, sorry, finish your point, and then I have
So my point is, because technology is more accessible, I would say the barrier for entry to be a content creator is at an all-time low.
Yeah.
But as to consider and call yourself a professional, does that mean that you have to be really good now? Like in the past, you could get away being mediocre, but now you need to be really good. Or is there so much mediocre content out there because anybody can do it that it's very easy to spot someone who is good?
I would say that it's a hybrid answer in that I think inherently when more people are interested in a topic, it can only be good for the future of that. So I think if more people are interested, and let's just say, I won't even, for the sake of this part, I won't even say TikTok or any of that type of content creation. I will just say like narrative stuff, like just entertaining content that isn't just, selfie mode. Okay.
Yep.
I would say that yes, the barrier for entry, or what is that the phrase? The barrier for entry? Is that what we're saying? It's a lot lower in that anybody can do it. I think that's good and bad because the people who really wanted to do it, who couldn't afford the gear, now have a way to do it. And I think that's only good for the art itself. Where I think it becomes bad is that, now I guess there's two good and one bad, and I'll do the bad and then the good again. Okay. The bad is that, now there's a lot of shit out there. Yep. Where there wasn't so much shit. There was some shit, but it was high budget shit, where it was just a flop. It was a gamble that there was a lot of money spent on. The camera gear that existed and the actors and stuff that existed, it was all still just as expensive, but it flopped for one reason or another. Now things flop because your average Joe Schmo has a 4K camera with ProRes and, and doesn't know what to do with a story or an image composition, just has a good looking camera.
Yeah.
So that's the bad. The good is those people will phase out.
Yep.
That like inevitably the market has become so saturated that if you really are shit, people will notice and you might get a quick viral pop, but then you'll go away. And I'm not bothered by that because everybody has an opportunity now to try. The only thing that I'm seeing now I'm not seeing more undeserved success. I'm seeing a lot more deserved failure. And without success or without failure, you can't ultimately succeed. So like the shit content that's going through my algorithm, and I've contributed to that shit content because again, I think you have to make shit to make good stuff.
Yep.
I'm not too concerned about the technology side of it because ultimately the cream will rise to the top. There's just a bigger amount of good shit to bad shit now.
Well, one thing too, and we're kind of talking about good points and bad points is, let's picture this. In your mind, you want to be a professional F1 race car driver.
All right.
And you're like, okay, how do I get there? And you realize, okay, wow, I need to do this and I need to do this. And
I need a car.
It's going to be expensive. I have to have sponsors. It's a whole thing. And when you think about it, that enough is to deter most people away.
Most.
But being then going back to content creation, and you were kind of touching on it too, is you have these people who want to get TikTok famous. They want to be a famous YouTuber. They'll do whatever. And now they can just take their phone with a really good camera and film shit. They can film and it's a broad definition, but I mean it could just be like mimicking the trending flavor of the month dance videos. It could be covering like you stirring a pot of food with like the latest trending, like my money don't jiggle jiggle, that kind of thing.
Again, guilty.
And
no,
yeah,
no,
and it's
no,
just but then you have these people who the barrier to get into the industry is so low, and then they just kind of think like, I'm gonna make it big, and it's like,
I want to pick up right on that analogy, and then I think this is how we can phase it out and then pick back up on this on the next time.
Yeah.
In a similar way that camera technology is, there's two worlds, right? There's the filmmaking space, then there's the content creation space. The content creators can exist because their audience wants that.
Yep.
I don't want that audience, so I don't care. Like, I mean, I care because when I see somebody blow up using the no, 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 no song, it frustrates me because I'm like, why do people want that? Like, why do people want to I'm more angry at the consumers than I am at the creator. Because the creator's playing to an audience that exists. And if the audience exists, go right ahead. So in this F1 analogy, if everyone could afford a Ferrari, F1 races would still be just as entertaining. There would just so happen to be a minor league where all the people who don't know how to F1 race are rolling their cars. And I'm watching them crash. And that's entertainment. Because the fail is entertaining. But the success is still just as pristine because the wonder of how they're actually able to do... Like, if you put me in an F1 car, I still don't know what to do with it.
I didn't even know how to hold the wheel. Have you seen those things?
That's what I was saying. You have to, I think you can equip the wheel to itself.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, like, if the market is saturated with more drivers... It doesn't mean that the good drivers are any less good. It just means there's now a lot of bad drivers, and that's content. I'm just not going to watch that content.
Yep.
You know?
And I think the best way I can kind of, again, we'll talk about this more in the next podcast.
Sure.
We'll pick up on this exact topic. But the best way I can kind of summarize, kind of end note, is I was listening to, it's a YouTube channel, Corridor Digital.
I know Corridor Digital.
They have a podcast called Corridor Cast.
Yep.
And I was listening to them, and Nico, one of the co-founders, along with Sam, we're talking about success in the modern day media. And he said, I would rather have 15 videos have 100,000 views than have one video get 30 million.
Yes.
Because you are creating a consistent fan base.
Yep.
You aren't just getting like this flash in the pan, and you're trying to just chase that success that you'll probably never get again because you hit some sort of weird algorithm.
Yep.
And that's what a lot of people do too. I think, a lot of people just kind of pick up their phone and film a TikTok. It's just a numbers game. They'll film 200 of them and have one of them do well.
Yep.
And then now they're chasing the success that'll probably never come back.
Well, and the problem that I found, because I've experienced that myself, is I've had 2 videos, quote unquote, blow up on YouTube, and everything else has gotten just about nothing. I have one video, which is 3 minutes long, get about 25,000 views. Okay.
Nice.
It was that weed smoking video that I did where it was like, I don't know if you ever saw it. It was basically like me doing a fake makeup tutorial about how to look high on film. Okay. But by the end you find out that I'm just actually smoking weed, and that's how you look high on film.
Got it.
So that got 25,000 views. I don't fucking know how it hit a Reddit thread or something like that. And then I have another video which was a short. It was a YouTube short, which I think I also put on my Snapchat, of me doing like this and then being like, the surgery went well. I lost a finger. That got 10,000 views. Okay. For no reason other than people saw that and were like, that's funny. I want to watch it. I'm gonna share it with my friend. Let's see what else that guy has. The average amount of views on the rest of my channel is about 15 to 30.
Yep.
Okay. So people see the shit. And they watch the shit, and they laugh at the shit, and they like the shit. But when then they go, okay, now let's see what real stuff this guy has. If I don't have hundreds of like the TikTok space. Again, I'm not trying to shame TikTok content creators. No, that's fine. I'm not trying to shame them inherently by saying they don't know what to do, but there's a market for people who don't know what to do with the technology. So they have the brand new iPhone 14 Plus, but they're still using the selfie cam and just making TikToks.
Yep.
People want to watch that, and that's fine that exists. That's not what people are coming to me for. So when they see that and then they go see, well, let's see what else this guy has. And then they see some like sad video about me processing my trauma and ADHD. They're like, it's not what I'm here for.
This isn't vibing with me.
This isn't vibing with me. So the audience exists to watch the shit. They don't want to watch me, and they never wanted to watch me. And that's fine to me. But yeah, when you hit that algorithm and you're like, this video takes off, all of a sudden you're like, I'm good. I'm really good. And then you find out very quickly, oh, I'm not good.
And I mean, kind of like you said too, going back, the audience that you would capture on TikTok is more than likely the audience that, not the audience that you would want watching your more serious,
my long form YouTube
videos,
content.
Stuff like that.
But when you hit a short or an Instagram reel that's like, it's quippy and it's not very catchy, it's the same thing. Like, I could post a seriously well-produced wedding video or a highlight reel or a music video or just some short film that I shot that gets nothing because it's not as palatable. It's not short. It's not, I can't just scroll through it. That's fine that it doesn't blow up because the people who do watch it end up ultimately appreciating it. I want those people. And eventually those numbers will grow. But by playing the algorithm to get them to me, I don't think that I'm capable of that. I don't want to play the shit content game very often.
Right.
Well, what do you say, John?
What do I say?
As far as content creation, we created about an hour and 15 minutes of content. And this is the first one that I've literally been like, but we have more to talk about. We got to keep talking.
Dude, I have so much more I can go into.
Well, and
not only about things that we have talked about, I have literally a laundry list of stuff that I can talk endlessly about.
Well, literally, just as a teaser for the next time you come around, in our text conversation, John said, hey, some homework for the podcast on Sunday. The only thing I need you to do is think of a camera that someone could buy today that you would deem entry level, but a good enough quality to purchase along with a lens. Camera being a DSLR style. We didn't talk about any of that.
Nope.
Which is fine because we talked about stuff relative to the space.
Yep. And one thing, the next podcast too I want to talk more about is, you have that advancement in technology. Everything is getting cheaper, but not only as kind of BS trash equipment getting cheaper, but a lot of really good equipment is getting really cheap. This could be DSLR, drones. Oh my God,
that's a big one.
You can get such a good drone for pennies compared to what you would have paid for in the past. And
10 years ago alone, the idea that the drone market would be so saturated is like, how did that happen? Where did that come from?
And you have, sound equipment even.
Yep.
I would say, like, that's what I want to talk more about. It's just, you and I were talking over here. We are siding with and shitting on all these people creating this equipment, or not equipment, creating this content with equipment that is entry level. And the issue is that it's so accessible.
Yes.
Fine. Let's take the conversation and talk about, okay, you want to create quality content and with quality gear, but you're not going to go out and buy a red camera.
No.
Let's spin it around. What is good quality equipment that you can then take to tell your story that is not breaking the bank?
The only teaser answer to that would be, I think we would then have to talk more about what it means to be a good content creator aside from the digital stuff. Like, what makes a good story?
Yep.
And that could be the subject. Because you're also a good film buff as well. Like, you know a lot about films and or you've watched a lot of film and television. You've been able to break them down narratively because you and I talk about cool story ideas.
Yep.
So I think
one thing too is, I know you were saying this earlier, that technology kind of scares you. You know, you have your specs and your different, that doesn't doesn't vibe with you a little bit, I would like to talk a little bit more about that, because
Yes.
I get lost in the sauce.
See, you care about the details.
I care about the difference between D-Cinelike and Apple ProRes. I
don't even know what the fuck you're talking about.
I care about 8-bit versus 10-bit. I care about difference of f-stops. I care about this kind of stuff. So,
which is amazing, because as someone you're not even a content
No,
creator
I'm
in any way.
I'm not.
You have never, I want to say never, but you don't actively do that.
See, what you do, I would like to get more into. You know, I own a drone. I take photos. I myself am still working on mastering color grading and your highlights, lowlights. I'm not good at that, where I feel like I will come over to your house and you're like, all right, let's just plop this in, blah, 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 done. And I'm like, oh my God,
how did you do that?
But then on the other hand too, I am able to look at two different cameras side by side and be like, one camera isn't necessarily better than the other, but they each do their own separate thing, and here's why.
Yeah, and that's where I need the lessons.
Yeah.
So next one will be a big lesson for the both of us. For the listeners at home listening to John Kelley, you get one 30-second spot to compliment me and tell me how good this podcast was for you.
All right.
I'm just kidding.
All right. No.